Welcome to Pumping Python. My name is Jacob Itegboje, and this is the truth table with binary operations. There are 16 of them. Each one takes two inputs, and each one of those two inputs could be true or false, which leads to four cases. True, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Time to write some code. I'll open the terminal, then add a new class. Enter 3 times, backspace twice. Class, test with a capital T, binary with a capital B, operations with a capital O. Parentheses, unit test dot test with a capital T, case with a capital C, colon at the end. DEF, test underscore contradiction, parentheses, self, colon at the end. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot contradiction, parentheses, true, comma, true. The terminal shows attribute error. Module source.truth underscore table has no attribute contradiction. DEF contradiction, parentheses, argument, colon at the end, return not argument. The terminal shows type error. Contradiction takes one positional argument, but two were given. Go to argument, hit F2, change it to P. Enter to accept the change, comma, Q for the name of the second input. The test passes. Here's the next case. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot contradiction, parentheses, true, comma, false. The test is still green. Here's the next case. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot contradiction, parentheses, false, comma, true. The terminal shows assertion error. True is not false. I'll change not P to match the expectation of the three cases, so return false. The test passes. Self.assert false. Parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot contradiction, parentheses, false, comma, false. The test is still green. Contradiction always returns false. DEF, test underscore logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, self, colon at the end. Self.assert true, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, true, comma, true. The terminal shows attribute error. DEF, logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, P, comma, Q, colon at the end, return true. The test passes. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, true, comma, false. The terminal shows assertion error. True is not false. When I add return false, the terminal shows assertion error. False is not true. For the line that was passing before. This function has to choose, is it going to return false or return true, based on the input. To do that, I'll use if statements. Enter before return false, add if p, two equal signs, true, colon. If q, two equal signs, false, colon. Then come down to return false and with control or command and the right square bracket, move it to the right twice. The test passes. Logical conjunction returns false when p is true and q is false, and returns true otherwise. Here's the next case. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, false, comma, true. Assertion error, true is not false. I'll add another condition, or another if statement. If p two equal signs false, colon, if q two equal signs true, colon, return false. The test passes. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot logical underscore conjunction, parentheses, false, comma, false. The terminal shows assertion error, true is not false. Enter after if p is equal to false, add if q is equal to false, colon. Return false. The test passes. I will add an if statement for the first case. If q is equal to true, colon, come down to return true, with control or command and the right square bracket, move it to the right twice. The test is still green. This function has two outcomes. In the first case, the result is true. In the other three cases, the result is false. I can use one if statement to represent the case that returns true, then use an else clause for the other three cases. Enter before the first if statement, add if p two equal signs true and q two equal signs true, colon. Return true. Else colon return false. The test is still green. I'll remove the other statements. I can change this first line to if bool parentheses p and bool parentheses q, colon. Comment the next line out. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented line. Bool parentheses anything checks if that thing is true. I can also change this line to if P and Q colon, comment the next line out. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented line. Python has ternary operators. They're also known as conditional expressions. These allow me to write the 4 lines I have here as one line. Return true if P and Q, else false. The test is still green. I'll remove the other statements. I could also use a simpler return statement that would be return P and Q. The test is still green. I'll remove the other line. df test underscore project underscore second parentheses self colon at the end. Self.assert true parentheses source.truth underscore table dot project underscore second parentheses true comma true. The terminal shows attribute error. def project underscore second parentheses p comma q colon at the end return true. The test passes. Self.assert false parentheses source.truth underscore table dot project underscore second parentheses true comma false. The terminal shows assertion error. True is not false. Enter before return true if P is equal to true colon. If Q is equal to false colon. Return false. The test passes. Self.assert true parentheses source.truth underscore table dot project underscore second parentheses false comma true. The terminal shows green. The test is still passing. Self.assert false parentheses source.truth underscore table dot project underscore second parentheses false comma false. The terminal shows assertion error. True is not false. Enter before the first if statement, add if P is equal to false colon. If Q is equal to false colon. Or return false. The test passes. The 2 cases where this function returns false are when Q is false. The 2 cases where it returns true are when Q is true. It's also just returning the same value as Q, which means I can say return Q. And the test is still green. I'll remove the other statements. df test underscore converse underscore non underscore implication parentheses self colon at the end. self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot converse underscore non underscore implication, parentheses, true, comma, true. The terminal shows attribute error. DEF converse underscore non underscore implication, parentheses P, comma Q, colon at the end, return false. The test passes. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table.converse underscore non underscore implication, parentheses true, comma false. The test is still green. Self.assert true, parentheses, source.truth underscore table.converse underscore non underscore implication, parentheses false, comma true. The terminal shows assertion error. False is not true. If P is equal to false, colon, if Q is equal to true, colon, return true. The test passes. Self.assert false, parentheses, source.truth underscore table dot converse underscore non underscore implication, parentheses false, comma false. The test is still green. There's only one case where this function returns true. I can put the two if statements together. Enter before the line if P is equal to false and Q is equal to true, colon, comment out these two if statements. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented lines. Then move return true to the left. I can change this first line to if not P is equal to true and bool parentheses Q, colon at the end. Comment the next line out. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented line. I can change this line to if not bool parentheses P and Q, colon. Comment the next line. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented line. I could also change it to if not P and Q, colon. Comment the next line out. The test is still green. I'll remove the commented line. Now I can write return true if not P and Q, else false. The test is still green. I'll remove the other statements. And to use a simpler one, return not P and Q. The test is still green. I will remove the other statement. I'm left with return not P and Q. Binary operations take two inputs. Each one of them could be true or false, which leads to four cases. If we name the first input P and the second one Q, then converse non-implication returns not P and Q. Project second always returns Q. Logical conjunction returns P and Q. Contradiction always returns false. Would you like to test more binary operations? I'll see you in the next one.